All right, thank you everyone for joining. Welcome to the Talking Turkey Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm the commish, Manny Jimenez. Good to see you all again. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
What's up?
Well, hi, your champ, Cody Williams here.
Beautiful. Welcome, Cody. Another night, another wonderful. I just got done watching the Dodger game. I hope you did too. It was great.
As did I.
Yes.
Angels made the mistake of walking Shohei to pitch to Mookie, and he first pitch homered right to left field.
Oh yeah, it was glorious. First pitch.
Karma.
Tim, how you doing out there? How's it going?
Pretty good. Can't complain. Didn't watch the Dodger game because I don't even think they're televised here, but happy for you Dodger fans that they won.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Nice way to cap off the evening. So I just did a draft, and I had guys from the neighborhood over and getting through that process, and we turned over watching Dodger game in the background, able to sit and watch the ending. I am in Angels country here, as I'm in North Orange County, so it's kind of nice watching my team beat up on this subpar team and letting them have it, and they thought they had a chance. It's wonderful to see. So and this kind of parlays into what our discussion is going to be about tonight. Going through our draft that we had last Sunday, it was really fun, really exciting. We had majority of the members in-house at the commission's location, and we're able to do it. We only had Tim and Javi remote, so it was great to see. But overall, what were you guys' reviews of the draft? 3 high-level things that you loved about the draft.
Hard for me to say. I mean, I was there virtually, so I think the one thing that kind of going the opposite way kind of sucks is not being able to see the draft board. Like, obviously on ESPN you can see who's picked what, you can go through teams, but actually seeing the draft board when you're there live makes it a lot easier to know who's got what, who someone might be targeting, like if someone has a quarterback yet or not, or a tight end or not, and that sort of thing. So but
that is a good point, Tim, because I was using that, especially because our draft board, I'm sure most of them that you can get in person are color coordinated with positions. So it is easy to identify, quarterbacks are gold. Oh, these 2 guys over here have no gold, and they're after me. They may be, looking to grab a quarterback, or tight ends are purple. Okay, everyone's got a tight end except me. I can wait an extra round or 2 before I grab a tight end. I would say that helped. Another high level thing, like Manny was saying, that I loved about the draft is new as of 2024, the commish special. That was a nice surprise at the end, and something I loved as well. You want to take us through that, Manny?
Yeah, it was something I was mulling over while I was looking at the draft board and setting it up. And you guys outlined very cool things about the draft board, right? We haven't done a live draft in 10 plus years. We talked about this. It was nice to do a live draft again, but now things are so sophisticated with these boards that the color coding of the players and positioning, it's really nice to see. And you're right, Tim, being live in person, seeing it in front of you really helps you identify and strategize as you're going through a draft. So I really did appreciate that. That's a spot on observation, Tim. So when I was going through this process and looking at it, when I was setting it up before you guys had come over a day before, I was like, it'd be great if I could set up an additional little nugget or little side bet to go on with it. So, as we know, fantasy football is a little bit of gambling involved, and that's what makes it fun, right? There's a little monetary incentive involved, but I felt that, all right, after we're done with this draft, we're all going to be able to look at this board. We're all going to be able to analyze this board. And Cody, you could talk about this. It was so funny, Tim, because you were virtual, but if you were in person, you would have seen Cody, Edgar, Romo, Ricky analyzing the draft board for 2 hours past the draft. It was hysterical. It was it was exactly what I expected from it. So the commission special was, all right, once the draft was over, you as an individual look at all the 12 teams and select the team that you believed would be the last place player for the season, right? And with the commission special, that I'm going to hand over $100 bill to the winner of that selection. So whoever's there, right? So I felt it was a nice little incentive. I wanted to create a little bit of animosity just before the season starts, right? To create a little pettiness, if you will. I think that always bodes well for the league. And when there's a little pettiness going on, not everybody can be. It's not kumbaya, it can't be, but it's made it fun. So, what did you guys think of when I threw out that little commission special? What was your first impression of that?
I think everyone got excited. At first, people weren't sure if they could believe you or not because it was kind of unbelievable. Like, you're just going to kick in $100, like for us, if we could get the losing team correct. And then, sure enough, everyone quickly gravitated and looked at Andrew's team real quick and started pointing that way. And then you mentioned it's $100 to whoever gets it right. So if multiple people end up picking it, you have to split that money. And so if everyone picks Andrew, we all split $100 and end up with $11 each. Didn't seem that appealing. So people started kind of branching out from there, looking at other teams, and started taking some dart throws just so they could be the one to win $100 instead of splitting it. A lot of people did not want to split and made their decisions based on trying to go for the whole 100 instead of splitting it up.
Yeah, it's a good pot stir for sure. Yeah. So, and then, I mean, really for me, like I didn't know who to pick until I saw that Ricky picked me. So I was like, all right, well, there's my answer. So
there's the animosity Manny's looking for.
That's the pettiness I was looking for, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I wouldn't call it animosity. It's just like, I really didn't know who to pick for a little while there. I wanted to pick Andrew, of course, just because he's the easy target, I guess. But then I saw two names already there. So I was like, I gotta play the odds. So I picked, I guess it's still only two that didn't get picked, right?
So there's only two names that were not picked. Romo being one of those, and Alex being the other. So Romo and Alex are the only two names that don't have a name selected to them. So people think highly of those teams, right? That's the other thing too, is it kind of gives a perspective on who actually teams the league kind of sees as dominant teams early on, right? That's another perspective we can get from there. There was only two teams that had multiple people selected. Mine was one of them. We'll run through my roster, but I had Cody and Carlos select my team as they believe last place team. Slightly insulted, but also like, okay, this is wonderful. This is exactly what I want. I want to be able to, when I have my 4-1 start, I'm going to look over at those two guys and be like, I don't know. You guys are already getting yourselves out of the running. But of course, Andrew was the other team with more than one name attached to it. So if the Robert and Romo are correct with Andrew ending in last place, they'll split the $100 and it'll be $50 each. So but you're right. It was surprising that the names were actually spread pretty diversely across the board and it wasn't all bunched to one central person. So I was pretty surprised by that we'd hone in and be more compact on a certain number of names, and considering multiple people have ended in the bottom four for multiple years, but it didn't work out that way. So it worked out exactly as I expected. So I'm looking forward to flashing this every month or so and seeing who's on track, who's not on track. Right? Once it gets to that bottom four playoff position, then it's really going to get exciting at that point. So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think that's good. I think that's something that we should probably keep doing. Maybe. If you want to donate it, feel free. But maybe we all kick in a few extra dollars and set that aside for that going forward, because it's
hey, it's the commish special. It's
That's true. I don't want to take it out there. I don't want to take it away from you. So feel free. Feel free to make it 1,000 next year. I mean, so. But
let's start with 100. But yeah, it definitely it achieved its objective of creating some early on, grinding the gears a little bit. So I was really happy about that. So a very fun little, you gotta enjoy this whole process, right? And this is gonna play out through the entire year. Something that we'll talk about here on the podcast. So the commish special, running essentially who's in the running for the commish special. So that's going to be a fun thing to talk about as we go through the season. But yeah, I mean, overall, the draft, again, there was some skepticism on how long it was going to take, how long people were going to take to do their picks. I did set it at 2 minutes per pick. I think it went extremely well. We had Ricky doing the names, and he did an outstanding job. A round of applause for Ricky. Round of applause. He did an outstanding job doing the names and the tickers. So hopefully we'll have someone else doing that role. There's potential to have a new rule in place to have the loser or the winner do the names next year. So we'll see how that goes. But or maybe we outsource it. Like outsourcing could be the way we go with this. So, but hopefully the goal of this too is to create more live scenario or live feel of this draft, and we want this to be a fun, engaging event. And I think it was. I think it was very successful. So I appreciate everyone who showed up and who had a good time. We had some great meat, some great Mexican food, some beers. It was outstanding.
Start to finish, it was a great time. I know we were planning on doing completely offline. There were some concerns about people who weren't here, how they'd be able to adjust and adapt to it. So I think you blended doing the online ESPN draft room with doing the offline draft board for the people who were there to experience, but also not take away from the people who were over Google Meet, having to kind of join in from afar. Having the 2-minute picks definitely gave, Ricky time to put the names on the board, gave everyone kind of a good amount of time for their picks. And I think you did a good job blending kind of the hybrid version of online, offline together. And I think it went well. The party was great, pre-draft and also post-draft. I think it overall went really well. It would be great to keep it going and do it again next year.
Yeah, as long as you have it rigidly timed like that, it's not going to take forever. I mean, there's only a certain amount of time it could possibly take if everyone takes the whole time. So that's the problem. That's when it takes forever. If you do a live draft and you're just kind of like letting people take their sweet time and you're not timing them, not putting a limit on it, then it can take all day. So it only took 2 hours, maybe 2.5.
Just under 2 hours.
Yeah.
Not bad. Looking back at the draft, were there any surprises that stood out to you too?
We had, for me, the biggest surprise was seeing zero RB strategy actually in play. That's never happened in our league. I think it was the really first time to see that. That was by Rob. When we look at his first 5 picks, with Chase, right? Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Nico Collins, Drake London. I mean, he really went zero RB strategy for those first.
In a league where you start 2 receivers and a flex.
Yeah.
Non-PPR.
Non-PPR, 2 receivers and a flex. And the flex is, you prefer to start running back in that spot, but if the wide receivers already got to go. But yeah, it was very interesting to see. I was a little taken back by it. But we'll see how it pans out, I mean, with his 6th pick, Dalton Kincaid, and then he took Richardson with the 7th pick. So he didn't draft his first RB until the 8th round. I mean, that was pretty shocking stuff. And I'm not by any means saying his team is bad, but it was surprising to see based off of our league settings. What was your guys' takeaway from Rob's draft strategy?
I think last year he didn't wait as long, but I think we all kind of thought his running back situation was not great last year. But this year it looks rough. But maybe if a couple of them pan out, he's got Nick Chubb that he'll have on IR stashed for a month, or who knows how long that might be. But I mean, looking back, I think he definitely had a chance to get some good running backs early. Just decided to go receiver. I don't know if it's because he didn't like the running backs that were there, or it's hard to say. He could only answer that, but it's a bold strategy. We'll see if it pays off.
especially in this league. I wonder. Right after the draft, I was wondering if it was a plan for him to go in doing something like this, or if he just was adapting and I like this receiver more than these running backs, I'm going to take him. But looking at it here, it clearly looks like he had planned to do this, taking his first bench spot before he even takes any other position besides a receiver. He must intentionally be, I don't know if it's a trade bait type of strategy he's also going for, because like you mentioned, Manny, he took Dalton Kincaid as his tight end, and then he took his quarterback before he even started taking a running back. And so what he was left with starting with round 7 was running backs that are splitting time or on the back end of a time split, with Pollard kind of being expected to be the RB1 to start. He has Spears. He's got at least Ford and Chubb.
I would say Jerome Ford is the guy going to be starting for the first 4 weeks for the Browns. So he did get that.
He is that. He also has Gus Edwards, who's splitting time with Dobbins and maybe Vidal. And then he's just got, a couple backups as handcuffs, hoping other guys get hurt. If McCaffrey gets hurt, he's got Mason. If Bijan gets hurt, high end RB2 or high end backup is Algier. So he's maybe playing the injury strategy, looking at the top 3 running backs there, and the first and third pick was McCaffrey and Bijan. So he took their backups, hoping he can either trade the handcuff maybe for a stronger running back, or if one of them get hurt, then he'll just be, lucky enough to already have that lottery ticket in his hand.
Yeah, and actually, when you bring that up, the handcuff piece, for me, I thought Jordan Mason was, after I read back and reviewed the pick on his third or fourth to last pick, I was like, okay, that makes sense. The backup in San Francisco has typically done well, right? Because they are leading games. There is someone that needs to spell McCaffrey. McCaffrey, has he played a full NFL season ever? I don't think so. He's always missed a couple games every season, right?
So, I believe last year he missed one game last year, but 2 years ago I think he played them all once he got traded.
Did he miss a game last year? I didn't think he missed a game last year, but
I think it might have been week 17 or 18 near the end, like once they had the playoffs locked up.
So it was a rest thing.
Rest thing, yeah. But I mean, typically, it used to be Elijah Mitchell would get run still there. So I felt like that was a decent pick, right? And if McCaffrey does go down, Mason is going to be the probably top 10 RB on the season. That's the reality. So, so a good handcuff there. And I understood that pick, but yeah, definitely the Spears Pollard situation is very, ambiguous. Who knows what's going to happen there? So I agree with you there, Cody. It's going to be interesting. And Gus Edwards, again, the Chargers' entire situation, right, with J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and then they got the third back, Vidal, right? Is there?
Yeah.
Vidal. So, yep, there's a lot of, again, ambiguity there. So hopefully Rob's strategy pans out. I found it, as went back and looked at the board, I was like, oh, I've never seen it play out in our league before. And because our league is so running back heavy, but yeah, I'm curious, right? I'm very curious to see how this pans out, because if it is successful, right? Let's say he makes a deep run. Who's to say that another person won't employ it next season, or two people, right? So it's a possible, and that would really kind of open things up, because we're always so scared that you're going to lose out on a top 10, top 20 RB in the first 2 rounds of our league, because they go so fast. So that's interesting. Who did you guys think in the first 2 rounds? Since our league is so running back dependent, who was the best duo or best first 3 picks? Who got the best 2 combination of RBs? I have my selection, but you guys tell me who you think were the best 2 RBs with the first 3 picks.
If I were to choose, looking at the best running back duo, looking at the first 3 picks, as much as it pains me to say it, it might be Carlos. Going with Paul and Kenneth Walker. I think Seattle's offense is going to be a lot better. And you can tell looking at my team, I took Metcalf and JSN. I think bringing in the new coach, McDonald from Baltimore, he's kind of a more analytical guy. Brought in the OC from Washington, who's really going to open it up. I think that's going to leave a lot of space for Walker. And then Breece Hall having Aaron Rodgers, that alone is going to clear out those boxes, and he's going to have plenty of room to run. He already was a stud last year. And that was with, Trax as their quarterback throughout the whole season. So I think those 2 are really going to be what scares me week to week for Carlos. It's a strong duo that he has to start with. And then he followed it up in round 3 by going with, the number 1 quarterback from the last couple of years, Josh Allen. So that alone is he's guaranteed to be in the playoffs, in my opinion. That alone is going to carry him. Whether or not he gets lucky in the playoffs to kind of get the matchups right, we'll see. But that alone is really a strong start, in my opinion.
Oh, good call out, good there. What about you, Tim? Whose team do you think in that first 3 picks with the 2 RB combinations look really strong?
I mean, can't disagree too much there. I don't know. We'll see what the split might be like in Seattle if Kenneth Walker gets more. If it's closer to 50-50, or if he gets the majority of the carries. I don't think he deserves to play less. I think he's a good running back, but just looking at it, I mean, I think Javi also has a good pair with Saquon and Jahmyr Gibbs. As long as Jahmyr Gibbs is healthy, I think, obviously it was frustrating last year, the Gibbs Montgomery situation. Gibbs definitely should start to see more of the work for the Lions, but who knows if it's going to be more of the same. But if Gibbs does get a little bit more work than he did last year, then that's going to be a good pair, I think. Barkley's finally in a good offense instead of being the offense himself, so he should have more scoring opportunities probably. So that's a pretty good combo.
Yeah, that's honestly my selection was Javi. When I looked at the board and I was like, oh, look at Barkley and Gibbs stacked on top of each other. I'm like, wow, that's a great tandem to have. As Cody said about Carlos's team, I actually, if I was looking at had the two teams to pick from, I definitely take Javi's two backs over Carlos's two backs, and it's only because the situations that they're in, right? Where Walker, the Seattle is playing in a very tough division. They're not the best team in that division, so they could be playing a negative game script. But if you look at the Eagles and Detroit, both teams are going to be high-powered offense teams. Both teams are projected to win their divisions, which means those running backs are going to get much more volume because they're going to be playing in positive game scripts. So I was like looking at that stack, and you're right, Tim. I think Barkley is going to get way more touchdown opportunity than he did in New York due to the fact that they don't have Kelsey there anymore, right? So that tush push, not that it's gone, but it's going to be vastly diminished, and Barkley's going to be the one to carry that mantle within the 5 yard. He's going to get those goal line touches. I mean, that's why they brought them in. And Gibbs, if he doesn't get, Cody was the Gibbs manager last season, and the first 5-6 weeks it wasn't looking great. That Montgomery was a touchdown fiend. He was doing outstanding, but the latter half of the season, Cody can attest to this. Gibbs was. It was his shining light, right? Kyren and Gibbs was a great tandem for him to have, carried him all the way to the playoffs for the championship. So, Cody, I mean, what would you say that Gibbs now wouldn't deserve that top billing for the way they produced in that second half of last season?
Yeah, I definitely would say so, especially getting him in the second round there. Especially, in a league where running backs do go pretty quick and pretty often. Yeah, having him last year, the first 6 weeks were pretty rough, watching Montgomery out there for a majority of the snaps. But then he finally got his chance kind of in week 6 and literally ran away with it. Looked like the better back. That combined with how good their offensive line, they have a top 3 offensive line in Detroit. So that opens up plenty of room. You can't stack the boxes, even though Goff is their quarterback. They have Amon-Ra on one side. They got Laporta on the other, who's really opening up space. This year, they'll even have Jameson Williams. They're going to add to the mix to try and be more of a deep threat. That's going to open up, so much more room. You kind of have to pick your poison with them. Even if you do bulk up, the box to try and stop the run, Gibbs is quick enough to get to the edge, and he just needs a slight little crease, and then he's through. So yeah, those first 6 weeks, it was kind of embarrassing thinking oh no, I made this guy my second round pick. It's a rookie here. He's not even the starter. But yeah, week 6 through the rest of the season, he really came through for me. And I'll always have a special place in my heart for him helping me win that championship here.
That's kind of why, looking back, that was surprising for Rob's strategy. He picked 9th, and I can't blame him for taking Jamar Chase, although now that situation's looking weird again. But he could have had Barkley, he could have had Gibbs, he could have had Kyren Williams. There's a lot of uncertainty around Kyren now at the moment, but yeah, I can't imagine Javi thought he'd get Gibbs in the second round. He picked early, but still. So yeah, it's that. Pretty good combo, but we'll see. Injuries happen, so who knows what we'll be looking at a month from now. But right now, it looks like a pretty good combo.
And now, while Javi's super stacked at RB, I definitely think his wide receiver room is not as strong as he probably liked. Getting Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, I think is probably out of the 3. Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Stephon Diggs out of the 3. Moore is probably the number 1 on his depth chart, where Devontae Adams, I really think he's going to get a volume play, but how quality are the throws going to be to him? There's been a lot of animosity with him in the offseason with the Raiders, trade talk, him being unhappy, him possibly going back to the Packers. That was even discussed. So I don't know how much his heart is in it right now with that team. named Gardner Minshew the quarterback, the starting QB. The guy's been, good in his career, not great. But all I can imagine if is Gardner has to throw the ball to him 15, 20 times a game for them to have any success, because I don't see other than that, the AFC West, it's the Chiefs division. I'm sorry, Tim, that's just the reality, but it's not the Chargers, he knows, but it's not that the Chargers are a pushover or the Broncos. So, the Raiders could be the worst team in that division again. And so it's a volume play for, Davante Adams at this point. So hopefully that's what happens, and hopefully he plays up to that level. But yeah, you think about that, and the last two drafts, Davante Adams going past the second round would be shocking, and he went in the third round in this draft. So what do you guys think about that?
I initially hated it, and I thought Packer fan just taking the ex-Packer, kind of going with a homer pick in a certain way. But then looking at it again, Gardner Minshew's, he was announced as their starting quarterback there over in Las Vegas. If you look at what he did with Pittman last year, Pittman had over 1,100 yards with him. He threw the ball constantly to Pittman. He had over 150 targets. If he does that again with Davante, he could end up, being a value here in the third round, going behind a question mark like Marvin Harrison Jr. He's a rookie, and we expect him to go into a good offense and do well, but he got him after him. After Nico Collins, who now has Diggs taking targets away from him. The reason I didn't take Nico, even though I had him last year in that spot, is because when he was on the field with Dell, it seemed like, Stroud did look quite a bit to Dell, and they were splitting the targets there, and it was maybe a Dell game versus a Nico game. And now you're throwing Diggs in the mix. So I think he can end up returning value there, especially when you look at what Pittman did last year. My only question is, they're clearly going to be a run-first team, defense team. Is the amount of plays that they run going to kind of equate to what the Colts did last year for him to reach those numbers that Pittman got? But if he's a better receiver than Pittman, if he can do exactly what Pittman did, I think Javi will be happy with that return.
Yeah, their new OC runs the ball 70% of the time. So it's another knock against that whole, air it out strategy.
If Davante can get open on those 3rd and 8s, he'll have plenty of chances at it.
With 3rd and 9.
Oh, sorry.
Tim, were you surprised by Davante's drop to the 3rd round?
Not really. I had a chance to take him, and maybe I should have. Cody mentioned that he went right after Marvin Harrison, who I picked, and I just think he's got the better quarterback, and he's on the team with the worst defense, probably one of the worst defenses in the league. So they're probably going to be playing from behind a lot. So that was my thinking behind taking Harrison over Adams. It might be my worst pick of the draft. Who knows? But I think the best case for Davante would be if he gets traded. If he gets traded to a contender, sometimes it happened with McCaffrey a couple years ago. Yeah. Isn't that why Edgar won a championship? If I remember correctly.
My title from me. You're correct.
Yeah. If he stayed a Panther, it would have been another. He still would have been good, but he became completely off the charts when he went to the 49ers. So.
And you'd be looking at a 3-peat right here.
Yeah.
Davante, you can come on home, bud. We'll welcome back with open arms.
I mean, it's hard to argue with the value. It's Davante Adams. He's definitely one of the best receivers in the league still. It's just everything around him doesn't look great, but he doesn't have a ton of competition for targets. I mean, they did draft Brock Bowers, but tight ends a lot of times, Sam Laporta came in and played great last year, but he's the exception. Usually rookie tight ends don't do so well their first year or two. So he doesn't have a lot of competition for targets, but how much are they going to be throwing is the big question, and how good. Minshew's doesn't have a big arm, so he might not catch a lot of deep touchdowns or anything like that, but I'm sure he'll still get plenty of targets. So be interesting, but
good call out there. So we'll see how that pans out. Best case scenario, Adams gets traded to the Packers, and Packers win a Super Bowl this year. It would be great. Wonderful comeback story.
Yeah, it very well could be. I have a question for you guys. There was only one, from what I can remember from the draft, only one controversy that kind of arose and popped up. It was in the second round when our lovely one of our Raider fan members here was claiming my computer's not working. My computer's not working. I want to draft Ken Walker, and it auto drafts Puka Nakua to our friend Angel, who had Puka last year. Any thoughts on the controversy? Should the commission have paused it? He did have the powers in the ESPN app to go ahead and pause it when Angel was claiming that he disconnected from the commission's Wi-Fi very suspiciously with that timing, might I add. Any thoughts on the controversy there? Puka already is on the trade block according to our group chat, so I wonder, that's clearly a sign he didn't mean to pick him. This is the earliest I've seen a player in the second round go on the trade block. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on the controversy that happened in the draft?
I'll let Tim go before I defend myself in this space.
I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened. I was there last year, even though we didn't live draft. A lot of us got together and, or was that the year before? I forget. I guess it must have been 2 years ago. But anyway, I know it was really hot, and my laptop started to overheat, and it wouldn't even work for a little while. I don't think I ended up having to auto draft though, so I don't really know what happened there. I mean, it's not not a bad pick, I don't think. I think Puka Nakua is pretty much a consensus first or second round pick this year. So I don't know. It seemed like it was a little early if he was trying to get Ken Walker, because I was like, what was it, pick 15-ish, or I don't know exactly what the pick number was, but
so I guess Puka would have been picked
17 or 18. 19.
Or I guess 18, and then Walker ended up going to Carlos there at the end of pick 3.
Three more picks behind Puka.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's it's 2-minute timer is kind of short when you have an issue come up like that, but there are other than Wi-Fi, usually you can turn your phone into a hotspot and connect that way. So there's solutions, but sometimes you got to think quick. So
Right. So we'll all have our phone as a backup. So great point, Tim. I think it was a couple years ago when your laptop overheated. What did you do? You came inside the house and your laptop cooled down. Then you were able to successfully continue your draft. What kind of device were you using at the time? Just so the people know.
The same laptop I'm on right now, I'm pretty sure.
The MacBook, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's prone to heat. Angel and Alex sat on a very sunny side of the yard. It was really, really hot. I was like, probably not a good idea. So there was complaints that the people who were sitting over there or our laptops are not working as fast. Well, they're probably overheating a little bit. The people who all sat underneath the pergola where we were at had no issues. All right, point number 1. Point number 2 was I've had 3 drafts now at my house, right? That being main one. I had one tonight, and I had one before where I had a group over. This was the only draft that had issues not connecting to the site properly, right? Where there was delay. So while I understand the frustrations, I mean, I have extremely fast internet, fiber optic internet. So I'm like, and Tim, you bring up point 3. We all have our mobile device. If I see my timer at 1 minute and I can't do anything on my laptop, I'm immediately open my app. I sign on to the draft there, and you do your draft. Very easy to switch between devices, which they made that accessible, right? That's something that ESPN has made very convenient. So while I understand his frustration, like, hey, I wanted a different guy than this. I like Puka over Ken Walker. I think we all were like, I don't understand why you're complaining. That's actually a fantastic pick, especially the value at that pick, right? At 17 or 18, we're like, oh, that's pretty good value there. But Puka is in the block now. Angel, this is in your view and indiscretion that you don't like. I apologize, but you're the only person to have that issue. So, until there's repeatable things that happen here, what's something that is constantly happening that's a failure, and I can't trust it, right? You were pounding those 10% alcohol drinks as well before the draft, so maybe you weren't quick on your feet. And we doubled the time for the draft picks. It used to be 1 minute. We made it 2 minutes. So you had plenty of time to pivot. Ricky had plenty of time to put the names on the board. Could have easily made a quick adjustment to get the guy you wanted. And also, if that was the guy you wanted, queue it up. Why would you wait till the draft pick? Queue up that guy. Have it there at the top of your queue list. So in case anything happens, it's going to pick your guy. There's some fundamental things that I see wrong with that entire process, but
Yeah, there were solutions available. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even mention the easiest one. I said turn your phone into a hotspot. I mean, that's probably the last solution. It's opening your app and logging into ESPN. You can make your picks right there too. So, yeah, it's. I don't feel bad for him. It's not like it was. If it was if it picked a kicker for him, then okay, that sucks. But he got a good wide receiver. So, nah.
He got possibly a top 10 wide receiver. Is Ken Walker going to end in top 10 running backs? If I had to bet between the two, I'm betting Puka is going to finish top 10 wide receiver over Ken Walker finish top 10 running back.
I would say most leagues Puka went ahead of Ken Walker. Yeah, it's safe to say. So, yeah.
Cody, any rebuttals from my point of view?
No, my biggest thing is just to have players in the queue before your spot comes up, or have a backup ready, have the phone ready. When it comes to draft day, especially in the Turkey Bowl League, with how much we invest into it, how much money we invest, how much time we invest, I leave nothing up to chance. I'll steal Ricky's phone, log in on his phone if I have to, in order to get that pick in. I have the laptop ready, I have the phone ready. I even bring an iPad with me just in case. That's always kind of sitting in the laptop bag. I trust nobody. I trust no man, especially Manny. I can see him disconnecting my laptop, but then I always have my phone ready. Queue it up is kind of the biggest thing. Have it ready, and maybe don't wait to the last 30 seconds, because it did seem like that first minute kind of ran by before he started claiming that he was having issues. And perennially, he is a guy. I did have a draft where he was the guy who kind of was slowing it down and taking time when there was no timer. I would say just when it's not your turn's coming up, start looking at maybe two guys that you would choose between. And then when it comes to your turn, you can kind of coin flip, but have them ready in your queue is my biggest thing.
I was queuing up guys constantly. Yeah, I mean, like right after I'd make a pick, I'd be like filling my queue, and sometimes it would be emptied out by the time it got back to me. But still,
it's filled up with guys that you.
At least you have your own ranking.
Your target,
yeah. So,
yeah.
Angel's like the guy when you go to like a semi-fast food spot, like you go to the Mediterranean spot, and there's like two people in front of you, and they're ordering their food, right? They're ordering their kebab and rice plate, and then the guy behind him has had like 4 or 5 minutes to view the menu, and then he gets up to the order queue, and then he's still looking. He starts to look at the menu like, dude, you had 5 minutes to look at the menu before that. Like, come on, man. That's how Angel.
What do you want here? You got 3 options.
Exactly, Angel.
What are you looking at?
Yeah. So that I equated to that whole nonsense. So it's like, dude, you know what you want. Like, you're in line. Look at the menu. It's up there on the board, right? They all digitize it now. Don't be that guy that's gonna wait till the last minute to make the order, because now it's your turn. Like, oh, I better look at the menu. Terrible strategy.
There was 1 year I'm in a league, the other league that I'm in, that Manny, you joined last year. I've been in that one for 15 plus years, and we used to do live drafts all the time. And there was a year that somebody didn't make it. It was a rule, like you had to make it, you had to be on time. If you weren't, there would be consequences. And 1 year, a guy didn't make it on time, and his first pick was Phillip Rivers, which this was when Phillip Rivers was at least decent, but still not who you want in the first round. So could have been a lot worse, like if we had consequences like that, like, if for auto drafting, then you get a crappy pick. But
that's true. If Angel, I would feel a little more bad for him if Angel, because sometimes going into a draft, you'll queue up your sleepers before you start looking at those picks, because it's like, hey, I want to target Brock Bowers here. If he queued up Brock Bowers as like a reminder, and that would just happen to be the top guy in this queue when this happens, I would definitely feel for him and see if there's more we can do. but like you guys were saying, he got Puka. He happened to start receiver, and as we mentioned, kind of with Rob's team, people don't like going zero RB. Apparently, Angel didn't want to go zero RB within the first 2 rounds, so that's kind of his plight. But he did, like you guys say, get a really good player. If he had gotten someone in his queue who was a sleeper, I might have been more vocal than pro Angel, but here, yeah, it's hard to feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Hard to feel bad. Now, speaking of Angels team, so he did go CeeDee Lamb, and then he went Puka Nacua with the auto draft pick. Kamara. Now, I went back and looked at it. I did select Angel to end in last place. It was due to this. Again, we talked about the pettiness. Well, since he threw me under the bus at the draft, right? So, like, the hell with you, man. I'm taking you in last. But I saw a lack of running back depth. Now, I will say when I reviewed it and looked at Kamara, what Kamara did from week 5 to week 17 last season, he was the highest volume RB out there. He's on a bad team, right? Let's be honest, the Saints are not a really good team when they're relying on Taysom Hill to do everything for them. But so the volume is going to be there for Kamara. Tim, Cody's rubbing his hands there because he's got Taysom Hill, and yeah, Taysom Hill is going to get a lot of volume. So Kamara was a fine play, but where I definitely worry for Angels team is next to running backs, Zamir White and Javonte Williams. Javonte is going to get some of that workload cut in from Jalen McLaughlin, and Zamir White. We don't know we talked about the Raiders playing a negative game script. We don't know if Zamir White's going to get that opportunity to do that. And when I was reading about Zamir White, I was surprised. I didn't realize he played in the 3rd and 4th preseason game. Typically, if you're a starting RB on a team, you're not playing in the 3rd and 4th preseason game. You're playing in that 2nd preseason game. You're playing maybe a couple series, maybe a half. But if you're this true team's RB1, you're not playing in those 3rd and 4th games. And so that was kind of shocking to me. I was like, I think a lot of people are too high on Zamir White right now.
I don't know. A lot of people with this same team made a big deal about Josh Jacobs. I think it was 2 years ago when he was playing in that, Hall of Fame game, and he started dropping down drafts, and then he ended up leading the league in rushing. Zamir White, we were talking about it with Devontae Adams. He's in a run-first offense. There's not a ton of those left here in the league. At the tail end of last year, I think it was the last 5 games, he was getting over 20 carries a game. So I think he got double-digit points for us in this league, which is a standard league. He doesn't really catch the ball, but in this league, you don't care if he does or not. He'll be getting 20-plus carries. I'm not too concerned. His head coach is an ex-middle linebacker, so I could see him, just get out there. I want you out there, kind of having a more old-school mindset than like McVay, who plays none of his starters. And even some of his rookies, he doesn't even play in the preseason. So I don't know. I don't pay too much attention to that in this particular scenario. If it was a different team, I might raise an eyebrow at it. But based on what he did at the end of last year, based on who his coach is, and then based on what happened with Jacobs with this team exactly 2 years ago, I don't think that's a terrible pick. He got him a little bit early for my taste, but in a standard league, he doesn't really catch balls. You don't really care. You just want him to run in the close ones and get 80-plus yards, which I think he's capable of.
Yeah, sometimes volume's all that matters with running backs, even if it's not good quality volume. Like committees can be nightmares, but I was trying to think though, if was this Antonio Pierce's first preseason? Did he take over midseason last year?
He did
for
McDaniels.
So it's like, that's like Cody was saying, might just have a more old school mentality. We don't know. Like, this might just be something he does every year. He might just play his starters all preseason. Maybe that's what he believes in. I'm getting reps. So it's hard to say. I didn't really see Zamir White too much last year. I don't know, like, he doesn't strike me just based on what I know that he's necessarily an amazing running back prospect, but he's not necessarily a slouch either. So if he gets 20 carries a game, there's not many running backs that do that nowadays. So sometimes that's all you need. Like Rachaad White last year had basically no competition in that backfield. Wasn't particularly efficient, but still was a great fantasy running back. Yeah. So
he was a top 5 RB in fantasy, right? Even with a PPR, he was a top 3 fantasy running back because of the amount of volume he was getting checkdowns from Baker Mayfield. So, yeah, it really depends on the format you play. Right. Well, ours is not a PPR league. We do have it's kind of like a half PPR in a sense, based off of the yardage that we allow for the RBs in a
like
way.
a quarter, point
Quarter.
every 5. So
Yeah. So we do have some incentive in there, but it's not as drastic as a full or half PPR league. Sure.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see with the Raiders. I just don't think they're a good team. I think the negative game script's gonna hurt. Like if it's 17-7 after the third quarter, I don't see Zamir White getting the ball the entire first quarter. They're gonna try to air it out to Devontae or to Brock Bowers to try to close the gap. So that's just kind of how I see it. Cody, let's talk about quarterbacks now, right? So the first 3 quarterbacks we're taking were Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. You taking Patrick Mahomes with your first pick at 4th round. Was Patrick Mahomes your guy, or did you take him because the top, or were you targeting more the Allen side again, and you just felt like, okay, I want to get a top 5 QB since I didn't get my guy? What was the strategy there?
So in years previous, when I've won the title in previous years here in Turkey Bowl, I've been a perennial wait on QB, be the last guy to take a QB, always wait on QB type of person. In the past couple years, I've started to change that mindset again a little bit and go for more of an elite QB, especially in this league being standard. I've had Josh Allen against me score 35, 40-point games and it being half of the entire other team's total. And so that kind of got me changing my mindset a bit. Even I still look for sleepers. I still look to see how long I can wait on QB. But in this, in Turkey Bowl specifically, I don't know how many other leagues actually use this rule, but we have sacks as -1 for the quarterbacks. And that really does kind of bother me and get to me. If your QB gets sacked 5 or 6 times, that's basically 50 or 60 rushing yards coming off your fantasy total. So I do try to target guys who have solid offensive lines and try and look at that. I do think Patrick Mahomes had a down year last year, and so I thought I could get him a little bit later. I think last year he was the first quarterback taken, and he might have gone at the end of the second, beginning of the third. So I thought I could get him at good value in the 4th, or if I wanted to push it, maybe the 5th round, but I wasn't quite confident with that. Solid offensive line. They added a couple more weapons, downfield threats. So I think the Chiefs' offense is kind of going to be back to what it used to be, and I think Mahomes is going to end up being the #1 overall QB, at least in our league, when you factor in sacks and everything else. So I really felt like I wanted to try and get Kyler. Everyone's talking about Jaden Daniels as well. But with those offensive lines, I couldn't trust them. I felt like they'd be too volatile. I thought Mahomes would kind of be a little more steady Eddie and have a better year than last year. So I wanted to kind of jump on him in that spot.
What say you, Tim? About Mahomes? You think Mahomes will get back into that top tier, top 3 QB elite position?
I don't see why not. Like Cody said, he had a down year last year, and they still won the Super Bowl. So he didn't throw as many touchdowns, but he was throwing to Kadarius Toney for many games. Like Rashee Rice kind of came on towards the end of the year. So if Marquise Brown can stay healthy and Xavier Worthy, if they're both on the field, if they do a lot of 3 wide receiver sets with Kelsey, Mr. Consistent, I don't know. At some point he's got to fall off. I hope, but yeah, I mean he's not really a rushing threat, but he's got probably a much safer floor than Josh Allen. Josh Allen can have. I think week 1 last year was against the Jets, single-digit points. I mean, it was he can have those really, really rough games where he's getting sacked left and right and turning the ball over left and right. Mahomes doesn't really have games like that. He might have games where he only gets you 10 points, but at least it's still, it's not like going to sink your entire week necessarily. So maybe not as high of a
yards in a touchdown game.
Yeah, he might not get the 40-point games a lot because he's not going to rush for 100 yards and multiple touchdowns, but he's still definitely. I'd be surprised if he's not top 5 fantasy quarterback this year, if not top 3, maybe #1. Who knows? But easily top 3. Yeah.
At least in
Agreed.
well, that's kind of how I was feeling. And then kind of looking back at the draft as a whole, looking at my position in the 7th spot, when I look at, you know, the odd rounds and then the even rounds, who was before and after me, the other quarterbacks that I would have had available to me, I would not have been happy with. It would have been maybe Dak Prescott in the 6th. Would not have been happy with that. Sorry, Tim. You know, a lot of the other QBs went either way before myself or way after. I feel like where I got Mahomes is kind of the perfect spot for a QB in that particular situation.
Yeah, because right after that, it was Lamar Jackson and CJ Stroud. And then, you know, after that, I was the next one, Richardson, Murray, and then Prescott. I was actually impressed with Romo's Murray pick. You know, I'd seen Murray drop into 8th, 9th round in a lot of drafts. You know, that was the guy I was targeting in a lot of drafts. So Romo was smart to kind of take him right after Richardson. So, but you're right. I was kind of, not that I was avoiding Dak. I like Dak, actually. Dak's great with Ferguson and CD. You know, he always puts up solid numbers. But I really wanted to go after that rushing yardage because similar to what you said, Cody, from before, having a QB that can get you a little bit more extra on the ground is something I want to target this year. Just take a chance on that, you know, and see how that gets me. Because I had Kyle a couple of years ago, and I loved the way he played under Cliff Kingsbury, you know, when he was having that monster year, the rookie year out of the gate. So I'm hoping that Jayden Daniels can have a similar kind of start to his career in that way. You know,
do you feel, looking at the draft now and seeing that you got Jayden Daniels in the same round that, you know, the 3 other quarterbacks went ahead of you, Dak Prescott, who, you know, not the greatest, but fantasy wise, he's had good finishes, especially in this league with that offensive line, Kyler Murray, and then Richardson going, you know, about 3 to 5 picks ahead of where you took Daniels. How do you feel about that? Did you take Daniels because he was kind of the last of your options at that point and kind of reach on him there? Because it doesn't feel like, with him being a rookie around that offense, you know, they traded away Dotson. It doesn't feel like he's of the same quality as those, at least the first 2 ahead of him, Murray and Prescott, and then, you know, the other question mark in Richardson. How do you feel getting him in the same round as those other 3?
I like the upside a lot more, just because what I think he's capable of, right? I kind of related to what I saw with RG3 in his first couple of seasons when he joined league. Elite running ability, but he's obviously a better thrower than those guys coming out of college. So I just didn't want to miss out on that opportunity, right? It was a risk play for sure, but the upside could be tremendous. I think that's what I was going for. But what did I do? I kind of hedged my bet later on in the draft, my second to last pick, by getting Jared Goff. You know, Jared Goff, while not a running quarterback at all, you know, indoors, out phenomenal, right?
Plenty of
Averages
indoor games this year.
14 indoor games that Jared Goff will be playing this season.
Yeah.
Indoors, he averages 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's astonishing over his past 2 years in Detroit. So that's crazy numbers. Something that's a great floor to have, right? For me, it was like, okay, I could deal with that floor, right? And if Jayden Daniels the first couple weeks is not turning out to be the guy I thought he was, I can easily default to Goff and be able to be happy with that production I'm going to get with 3 TDs and 200 yards. And that'll be just fine for the team that I have. So I did want that upside ability, right? I don't want to miss out on those 27, 20, 32 point games, you know, that can happen potentially with some of those quarterbacks, right? Which we've seen with Josh Allen and stuff like that. So when quarterbacks make plays with their feet, right? The throwing in our league, throwing's only for 4, but if they can rush a couple in, it's just a massive plus side bonus, right? By getting the actual 6 points rather than the 4.
Yeah.
I think you just might be frustrated throughout the year, knowing which one to start. I think that's the problem with taking 2 quarterbacks in this league. You know, like, I'm always tempted to take, you know, like, Dak was not my first choice by any means. But, you know, there kind of started to be a run there where it was like I could either take Dak or take a chance on Jayden Daniels later or Caleb Williams. And so but then, you know, if you get a good backup like Jared Goff, he's going to be, you know, there are going to be weeks where he's on your bench with more points than Jayden Daniels. And that can be frustrating. So I'll be interested to see how accurate you are week to week picking the right one. But yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I'll definitely have some decisions to make. It'll be matchup based for sure. If we talk about week 1, Jaden Daniels playing against Tampa Bay at Tampa Bay. I like that matchup a lot, actually. I think it's going to be fun for him, fun for the team. I mean, that could be a shootout potentially, right? Because Baker's definitely going to air it out with Mike Evans. So we'll see what happens. It'll be good. I mean, and you're right, Tim. I'm actually struggling with a week 1 decision because Goff at home against the Rams, his old team. Ooh, it's like
I know.
that's a juicy matchup right there. That's a juicy matchup.
I mean, already, do you want to be the guy that plays your QB2 over your QB1 week 1?
And the Rams without Aaron. I mean, I know they drafted a couple defensive linemen, but Aaron Donald's gone. Who knows if the Rams defense is going to be any good this year? So that's what I mean right there. Like anytime Goff's at home against a weak opponent, depending on who Jaden Daniels is going to play, it's going to be a tough call, probably week to week. But more upside with the rushing for sure. Yeah.
Well, I wonder the other person who's got a decision to make is Angel. He drafted Caleb Williams, and then 6-7 rounds later, he took Kirk Cousins, who's at home in the dome, new offensive coordinator. Finally probably gets the weapons are freed up to actually have a quarterback throw to them. They are playing the Steelers, but being at home in the dome, a little bit faster turf. I wonder if he'll end up choosing to play Cousins over Caleb Williams. Especially because Caleb is, the Titans defense isn't what it used to be under Vrabel. But it would be interesting to see who he ends up going with there, because that I feel like is another tough choice. It's part of the reason why I try not to draft 2 QBs unless maybe you do something a little bit risky, like drafting. You can see the guys who drafted the rookie QBs all tried to get a second more stable QB back them up.
Mm-hmm. If I was in Angel's position, I would stick with Caleb Williams in that scenario, just because of the upside with his wide receiving core, and I trust that really. It's really high, and with Caleb can do with his feet, you can be excellent. What I don't trust is Kirk Cousins in a new offense, a new leg, essentially, right? Coming off the Achilles injury, we don't know how it's going to hold up, right? We saw Rodgers come out last season, and not that he had Achilles injury before, but it was just a new environment, a new space, not really ready for it. So just for the sake of risk, of being risk adverse, I'd go with Caleb Williams over Kirk Cousins, because one knock of Kirk Cousins and knock him out of the game, that would just shatter your prospects for the day. Yeah. And who knows what that Falcons offense is going to look like. We already know based off Hard Knocks. I mean, they showed us what that offense looks like is going to be in Chicago. They're going to air it out. They're going to air it out, and they're going to let him do what he's going to do. Hard Knocks is also hard to see, but it is cool because you get to see kind of a glimpse inside of what's happening there. The Falcons, we really have no idea if, Darnell Mooney joined the team. Drake London is expected to get a level up. Kyle Pitts, I drafted in a couple leagues, and people have been giving me grief about it, where you're right. I'm taking a risk on Kyle Pitts because I don't know if this is the year or not. If it doesn't pan out this year, it's no good. So if that's the case, who does Kirk Cousins really have to throw to? One guy, Drake London. Who knows if it's going to pan out, right? Or dump it down to Bijan. So it's not a scenario I trust right away. I would trust Caleb over Kurt in that first week.
Yeah, I think it's probably a more difficult decision for you between your two guys. There's a little bit more unknown with Kirk Cousins, but he's been pretty consistent throughout his career. He's never, I don't know if he's won a playoff game, but fantasy wise, he's kind of like Phillip Rivers, throws a lot of touchdowns, is a great regular season quarterback, not so much postseason. So, it is risky to just take a rookie quarterback and then not take a backup, but it can also be frustrating unless the rookie turns out being bad, and then you can just cut him. But I think you guys are going to just have difficult week-to-week decisions depending on how those rookies perform, and I hope that with Dak I don't have to deal with that. I almost hope he doesn't get his contract extension so that he just plays ball this year, and tries to ball out and get a big contract somewhere else next year. But we'll see how that goes. So,
What did you guys think of Hobby's QB selections of taking Jordan Love in the 8th round and then taking Rodgers, essentially 3 picks after that? I thought that was a little surprising to me.
I wasn't too surprised. Hobby's look at the rest of his team. He has Christian Watson. He's a Packer fan here. He took Devontae Adams, as we mentioned before. He loves not only the Packers themselves, but having Packers on his fantasy team, even if they were ex-Packers. If you were to ask me who I thought Hobby would draft as his QB, this is exactly what I would have told you. I would have told you he's going to go for Love, and then maybe in the second to last round he'd get Rodgers. He might have gotten nervous because people were taking backup QBs, so he reached for Rodgers in the 11th. I don't know. I'm not surprised at all here.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that he would take Rodgers. I don't know if he doesn't fully trust Jordan Love.
Aaron Love.
I'm mashing up their names now. But yeah, it's like I don't know if that's how I should take it. Does he not have full belief in Jordan Love? Because he had some rough games last year, but I think the last second half of the season he was pretty consistent.
Yeah,
so
into the playoffs.
I think he'll probably end up starting Jordan Love week to week. Maybe Rodgers will be a bye-week replacement. I don't necessarily see Rodgers outperforming him. I don't think Rodgers will be bad, but who knows how he's going to be coming off the Achilles injury. It'll be his first season really with a new team and a new offense, new receivers. I know they've probably practiced a lot, but I think Jordan Love has a lot more upside at this point than Aaron Rodgers. So, interesting, but maybe like I said, maybe he just not really sure what he's going to get with Jordan Love, if he's going to have a sophomore slump, because this is not a sophomore obviously, but starting wise it is. So, but
he's a 5-year veteran league. I don't subscribe to that sophomore slump situation with Jordan Love just because. Right, no one said that about Patrick Mahomes, right? He sat and then he came in, and no one's worried about that. I don't worry about Jordan Love. He's a professional. He proved that second half of last year that he can get better as the season goes on, and he's got a great coach behind him. The last thing I saw Aaron Rodgers do before the injured season last year, his season in Green Bay was statistically his worst season when it came to yardage, completion percentage, and interception to completion ratio. So I don't see where Rodgers is getting better. I just don't see.
He didn't have anyone like Garrett Wilson there, though. Wasn't his best receiver Lazard back in that time frame? Devontae was gone already to the Raiders.
Devontae had just left.
Hadn't he checked out pretty much?
He was
mentally checked out that year. So, but I don't know. He's still.
No.
There's rumors that he's not really getting along with his coach now. Like you can just tell he's one of those guys that knows everything, and he's not going to listen to his coaches at this point in his career. So who knows? There's a lot of expectations again around the Jets, but who knows how that's going to work out. But I just want to go back a little bit. Are we comparing Jordan Love to Patrick Mahomes already?
Yeah, that was a bit weird.
Are we there?
We're not there, but we
okay.
could be after this season.
Has he kind of put him in the same sentence?
We're not there. We're not there.
Yeah.
I want him to be there. Of course, I want him to be there. Like today, of course.
Yeah.
I'll be glad to see Hobby win the championship. If Jordan Love's winning the title, Hobby, go for it. I'm all about it, 100%. If the Packers are taking down,
if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, I'd be happy if Hobby won the Turkey Bowl trophy.
Oh man, so good call out there, Tim. Good call out there. We're not there yet, but we're getting close. We're getting
not
close.
saying he can't be. There's no reason to think that he can't possibly get to that level eventually. But that's just, it's very lofty. I hate Patrick Mahomes as much as anyone, but gotta respect the way he plays. So yeah.
Oh, 100%. The talent is undeniable, unquestionable. But when it comes to Jordan Love, I've been defending him for 3+ years now, saying the Packers have made the right move. They've done the right thing. When he got the starting job, I know some people in the league were making fun of me, like, oh, how is it going to feel to finally not have a elite QB in your backfield, right? Being a Packers fan. I don't know what you guys are talking about. He's going to be just fine. And it proved to be right. Packers, better than any other franchise, know how to identify quarterback talent. So I'm not worried. Now it's not Patrick Mahomes, but the possibilities there. The possibilities there. I can't deny that. And the weapons are astronomical, right? I mean, Jordan Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Luke Musgrave. I mean, and now adding Josh Jacobs, the Packers are going to definitely be one of those teams that I'm going to enjoy to watch this season.
And the eventual starter, Marshawn Lloyd.
Oh, why you got to go there? Why you got to go there? It's going to be volume.
I can dream.
Yeah.
I hope he's the pass catcher at least, but we'll see.
Yeah, he's going to definitely get some run. I mean, I imagine the Packers will be ahead in a lot of games, and you'll see Marshawn Lloyd getting some garbage TDs, right, in the fourth quarter if he gets. And that's great for the team if that's the case. So, and great for you for picking up my handcuff. Yeah. All right, guys. I love it. I love it. Great breakdown of the draft. All right. We talked about some very unique things. Let's pivot to some two bold predictions that you're going to have heading into the season, right? As we come close to closing this out, what are two major things, whether it comes to our league specifically or in the NFL in general with players? So, Cody, I know you got some things on tap, so you take it away.
For my first bold prediction, and this is one, if you look at my fantasy teams across the board, you'll see evidence of this. I'm going to go ahead and say Blake Corum outscores Kyren Williams in PPR, 0.5 PPR, and even non-PPR, including our league Turkey Bowl here. I'm going to say he outscores him. I think I've watched him quite a bit on that Michigan run last year. I think he's really good. I was the Kyren owner last year. I was the Akers owner the year before, and I saw Kyren, get hurt, miss a bunch of time his rookie year, have things flare up last year. He missed about 6 games. People seem to overlook that. He's been in the league 2 years and played maybe a combined 11 games total between the 2 years. So I think Corum is going to be more solid. I think if Kyren does happen to get hurt in maybe the 3rd or 4th game, and even if he only misses 2 or 3 games, when the Rams have Corum out there on the field, I think they're going to be a lot more reserved with Kyren and his role. He won't be getting 70% of the touches like he kind of did last year. So I think Corum's going to take over the backfield, surpass him and outscore him in fantasy this year. That's my first bold prediction. And I believe I have him in every league except one. I think I have him in 4 of the 5 leagues I'm in. So that's my first bold prediction. I don't own Kyren in any league as well. So that can kind of go to show you. I'm not just using him as a handcuff. I'm really going for him.
Nice. Okay. No, that's good conventions when it comes to picking your guy and conventions that you have not having that guy. What do you take of the news recent that was dropped? Was it the day or day before that Kyren is going to be returning punt for the Rams?
A lot of people
mean something or doesn't mean something. Yeah.
It does and it doesn't. I think people were freaking out thinking that it meant he was no longer going to be the RB1, at least to start the year. It seemed when I was doing a little more research on it that they cut the other 2 guys, the special teams players that they had returning punts in the preseason. It was something Kyren had done previously. So it seemed like it was kind of more of a roster move. Hey, if we cut these 2 guys, we can use him. But also from a fantasy perspective, if he does happen to catch a punt and run it for about 30 yards, he's not going to be the guy on first down right there. He's going to be gassed a bit. So they're going to use Blake Corum there on the first, second down, third down. So I think that'll go to benefit Corum as well in kind of a roundabout way. Not that it means Kyren won't be the RB1. If he fair catches it, he'll probably be the guy out there on first down. But if he does have a good run, he'll come off the field. That'll give Blake Corum even more touches. It also happens, unfortunately, with guys just sprinting down at you. Give Kyren more chances to get hurt, unfortunately, which you never want to see happen, but that's one way that I do view it.
Yeah, I can't think of another, like, a starting running back for any team that's also been their punt returner, at least not
Exactly.
a bell cow. So it's not good. And I also just think that last year Kyren got so much volume. Like, I mean, he was good, no doubt, but he also didn't really have. There was no one else worth handing the ball to in that backfield. And now they've got Corum, who You know,
traded
when
on
you drafted him, right? You drafted him right before, you know, we kept swapping picks. I would pick out of you, you'd pick out of me, and you picked right ahead of me. And I was few minutes leading up to that, I'm like, is this too early to take Corum? And then you picked him anyway, so I didn't, you know, I didn't get to. But yeah, I don't know if he'll take it over, but I think I don't think Kyron's going to get. I don't know how many carries he got per game last year to close out the year. At least 20, it seemed like in every game, plus some catches. So I think, you know, it'll be more. He'll probably get, you know, more like 10 to 15 carries a game, and if he stays healthy. So, but that's I don't necessarily disagree. I think a lot of people are kind of thinking along similar lines, but it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out, especially with him returning punts. That's a play that a lot of injuries can happen on, especially. So someone who's kind of injury prone already, to throw him back there to return punts seems just a little weird if you're planning on giving him the kind of workload he got last year. So.
Oh, good call out. Good call outs. And what do you got for number 2, Cody? What's your second goal?
So this is more of my Turkey Bowl specific bold prediction. I'm going to go out on a limb because these are 2 quarterbacks that if you turn on any fantasy podcast, any fantasy YouTube channel, if it says QB sleepers, if it says QB ranks, anything QB related, the guy everyone's going for is Kyler Murray. The other guy, hey, if you don't get Kyler here in the 7th, you can go ahead and get Jaden Daniels. Those were the 2 guys on everyone's sleeper list. I'm going to go ahead and say that having those 2 quarterbacks in Turkey Bowl specifically, because sacks are minus points here, I'm going to say sacks are going to cost Manny and Romo each 2 games this year. If one of them gets sacked 5 times and you lose by 3, you lose by 4, that because of sacks, because of having those players, that costs you the game. I'm going to say they cost you each 2 games. You're going to lose by the amount of points that sacks were involved there.
2 games. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to say 2 games for you, 2 games for Romo. You know, having Kyler, having Jaden Daniels in a regular league might not cost you because you're not losing those sack points. But here in Turkey Bowl, I'm going to say you're going to have a little bit of regret when you look and you'll have lost by 4. You click on his points and he has -6 because of sacks. That right there is going to sting a little bit.
Got it. Okay. No, the fair call out. I think you're also not including the fumbles, right? There could be an opportunity for fumbles as well, right? Fumbles are a very big detriment in this league. I think I penalize them more than a lot of other leagues. I think a lot of leagues -1 on the fumbles or -3. Right?
It's typical leagues are -2 if you lose the fumble. Here, if you fumble and get it back, it costs you 1. Most leagues, if you fumble and your team gets it back, it doesn't not a turnover. It doesn't count against you.
Yeah. So yeah, we're pretty heavily penalized there. So there's always that opportunity, right, with these running quarterbacks. But still, again, more the risk upside that I'm looking for, right? I'd rather have that ability to have a weekly pop than just kind of have, stagnant scoring across the board where you're not really having that ability to, have those blow up weeks that you're looking for, right? To also win the weekly payouts and those things. So that's good.
Those sack fumbles, sack lost fumble -4. That's a rough play. So sometimes, it just depends on how your roster is built too. I mean, if you're getting enough consistent production from your running backs and wide receivers, then you just want consistency from your quarterback. Like, you might not necessarily need a 30-point game. Obviously, it's great, but so I don't necessarily disagree. I think there will be some rough weeks, especially like I mentioned with Kyler. I think the Cardinals defense, they have their head coach is defensive minded, but their defense was not great last year. I don't see any reason to think they'll be that much better this year. So they'll probably be playing from behind a lot. And, when it's obvious you're going to be in a passing situation, that just opens up more possibility for more sacks. Could get garbage time points too, but could get some of those sacks and, face more of a pass rush. And so could be some games like that where you end up getting screwed by the sack fumble or something like that late in the game. So, but Can't argue the upside either. So
Yeah.
it's a gamble.
Yeah, we'll keep track of it. So I love the call of the number there. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, Tim, what do you got? What are your two bold predictions?
I'm still working on thinking of a second one, to be honest. But the one that I have is I think Deshaun Watson's going to be benched by midseason.
What?
It doesn't even feel like that's that bold. He's missed a lot of time, but even when he's played with the Browns, he hasn't really looked particularly good. I mean, Joe Flacco last year looked way better than probably any game that Deshaun Watson has had as a Brown. They just restructured his contract. I don't really know. I know it was fully guaranteed. They gave up 3 first-round picks for him. Like, I can't believe there's not more attention on just how bad that trade has been so far. And he had surgery, season-ending surgery on his shoulder last year, and apparently sat out some practices with a sore throwing arm. I don't know if it's shoulder or not, but whether it's injury or just performance, I could see him being benched, and they got Jameis Winston backing him up, and I could see him taking over as a starter by midseason. So,
Oh, I love me some Jameis Winston. I love that volatility of throwing 3 touchdowns and but 3 picks and yeah, 400 yards, 4 picks, 3 TDs. Yeah, I love that. So I'd love to see Jameson Winston in there. Yeah, Deshaun, he's kind of passed up. The game's kind of passed him up. He had all that off-field stuff that really just gave a lot of bad taste in people's mouths. So no one really likes watching the Browns when he's out there. They got to the playoffs without him last season, so who knows what he's going to bring to the table. But it just seems like the Browns really are on the losing end of this deal when it comes to Deshaun Watson. So yeah, I'm with you, Tim. Just not a good feeling.
I feel so bad for Browns fans too, because they finally have their team situation is great other than the quarterback, and I'm sure they thought they solved that when they traded for him.
Oh yeah.
And so like, I know a couple Browns fans, and like they've had some rough years, and now they finally have a pretty good roster top to bottom. But last
and a
year they
great
went
coach.
from
I love
5.
Stefanski. Stefanski's
Oh
a great
yeah,
coach.
I mean, them making the playoffs last year is like basically a miracle. 5 different starting quarterbacks. So if they had consistency at quarterback, which they never seem to have, at least not that I can remember at all, they'd be a definitely perennial playoff team, and possible Super Bowl team if they just had
Contending.
yeah. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, meanwhile, Baker, the guy who won him a playoff game most recently, is the guy they let go to Tampa, and he went and won a playoff game last year for him over the Eagles.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and like when he was there, they were kind of up and coming, and now they finally, like, their defense is great. They got Amari Cooper now, and hopefully Nick Chubb will come back full strength. Who knows what's going to happen there, but yeah. So it'll just be interesting to see. But I think it's hard to, like. It doesn't seem like Jameis Winston, based on what I've seen, would be really a downgrade. He's not afraid.
Nope.
But Flacco had some rough games last year too, but still put up massive numbers. 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but 500 yards, 400 yards. He had some big games. So yeah. But,
James Winston, serviceable quarterback in the NFL, amazing quarterback for fantasy, right? Because he just airs it out. I love that. Right? You love quarterbacks who are willing to throw it deep, and that's definitely Jameis Winston. So. No, good. All right, good call out there. Good stuff. Good stuff. So I'll move on then, Tim, if that's the one you got. So for my bold prediction as far as players in the NFL goes,
let's hear it.
I'm gonna say, and Cody's gonna love this. Angel, not so much. I think Taysom Hill is gonna outsnap and outtouch Alvin Kamara.
Oh my goodness.
In week 1.
In week 1 specifically?
In week 1 specifically.
Oh, okay.
Not on the season. In week 1.
I thought you were going real bold there.
No.
I was gonna say
But the bold the way this continues is so that's the bold for week 1, but the bold for the season is this is going to cost Dan Allison's job. He's going to get fired because the way this dude, I'm watching his press conferences talk about Taysom Hill. He's acting like Taysom Hill is football Jesus. It is outrageous. And when I watched preseason,
he's right.
I know he's right. But they lined him up at tight end. They lined him up at running back. They lined him up at quarterback. I was like, oh,
He's the
man.
best tight end I've ever seen. He's just your prototypical tight end. Like he should definitely be labeled a tight end in fantasy football because that's exactly what he is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that when I see that kind of stuff and I hear the way Dennis Allen talks about him, he just got this man crush on him. Like I don't know another coach that's talking to a player about like this. So I'm like, man, Taysom Hill's going to be on the field the whole game because the Saints are not a good team. Right. Olave's their number 1, but I don't really trust Shaheed as a second receiver. We know Derek Carr doesn't throw to the second receiver that much. And then if Taysom Hill's there as a running back, eating into Kamara's work, we've seen it before. And then if he takes snaps at quarterback and where he's going to do an option with Kamara, and he's not going to give that ball up to Kamara, he's going to take it himself.
Yeah, baby.
So week 1.
That's why I don't understand why they like Derek Carr last year should have probably been benched. Like, I don't know why they don't just start. Hill was a college quarterback. Like he could play quarterback. He might not be the greatest passer, but he's serviceable passing the ball. He's a threat to run. Like why not just make it, a zone read type offense? At least it would be so much more fun to watch than Derek Carr.
Checking down.
Yeah, checking it down or missing receivers. Like, I just don't get that. It's Derek. You know what you're getting with Derek Carr. It's not exciting. He's had one good season. He got injured. He hasn't been the same since. Just throw Hill in at quarterback and then label him that in fantasy football. Damn it.
Yeah, Tim does not like the TE label at all. No, you might get that by the second half, Tim. You might get Taysom Hill starting quarterback second half of this New Orleans Saints. I mean, it's a wild situation there. But he's going to play halfback. He's going to play quarterback. He's going to play tight end. He's going to spread out. Play wide receiver 1 too, right? I mean, it's just crazy how they're utilizing this guy. So that's week 1 prediction. But with this scenario, Dan Sal's going to lose his job by midseason. So whoever the backup coach is for the Saints, hopefully he gets wise and starts using his actual weapons like Olave and Kamara and everybody else there.
Taysom Hill's weapon too.
Taysom Hill too. Bold prediction number 2 for the fantasy league, and I'm calling this out.
Let's hear it.
Cody's going to start the season 0-1. Andrew is going to get the first win of the season.
That's a coin flip. That's your bold prediction?
How's that a coin flip?
ESPN projects him higher than me.
Andrew, but our league selected him to have the worst team in the league.
You were correct, but projections have him as the high score of the week. Projections have him as the high score. He's favored against me.
How often do we put in? How much stock do we put in those projections?
I would say it's not that bold of a prediction to pick one guy in one matchup. If you were to say Andrew makes the playoffs, I would applaud you. Let's get bold here.
Let's get bold.
Andrew, if you were to say Cody misses the playoffs,
that's where I thought he was going.
That's what I thought too. That's what I thought too. I thought he was going to say Cody starts out the season and whatever, and then misses the playoffs or something like that. That would be bold.
That's where I thought he was going.
Yeah,
but
hey,
my lowest finish is
here
6th place.
All right, yeah, 6th place. Okay, all right, and I'll throw one more out there just because Cody, I've looked at your roster.
Okay,
JSN, Jackson Smith and Jimba will be your first drop of the season.
Oh,
you're gonna.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, Jackson Smith and Jimba will be your first drop of the season. You're gonna move on very quickly from that move because you're going to realize that was not a great draft pick. I believe I have him as potential bust candidate for the season.
Wow.
Because typically, reason being, getting a little frozen here. Yeah, but I have some logic to it. typically when you see those rookie wide
Yeah.
receivers, they start slow, but they find their footing, like a Rashee Rice, like a Zay Flowers, right? And then later in the season, they really do well, and they pick it up, and they really shine in that second half of the season. Jaden Reed did last year at the Packers. You see that second half uptick in right production, catch rate, volume for those wide receivers, slot wide receiver rookies on teams. JSN didn't see that. He actually saw a downtick, and he actually did not perform well down the stretch with Seattle. And Lockett just got paid, right? Lockett is how old now? 30, just crossed 32, 33 years old. DK is obviously number one on the team, so that volume share is still heavily favored to those two guys. So I don't see where JSN production. You guys are so high on Kenneth Walker too. He's also going to eat that production. There's only one ball go around, so I don't see JSN getting enough volume and getting that enough production to be someone that's going to be relevant in fantasy this season.
Okay. Not too bad of a call.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would devastate Cody too much, really.
No.
What was the
No.
11th
He's gonna
round
pick
pick?
up. Yeah. It's the first wide receiver off the bench. Yeah,
he's a handcuff. He's a handcuff for DK Metcalf. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
that means Jameson Williams might be doing work. If JSN's the one I cut, my other receiver, Jameson Williams, maybe he's touching some of that upside. So I don't hate that too much.
JMO is going to have a great season. That I can say. I'm very confident in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can get behind that. That's a little bolder too.
Yeah, JMO is going to have a great season. I think Amon-Ra is going to get so much attention that JMO is going to really get it opened up, and hopefully he worked on his route running. Seems like he did in the preseason, and not just be a deep threat, but be an underneath threat too. Where Amon-Ra, that's where he excels, and so hopefully JMO can get with the program and really add another element to that offense. So.
Okay, so then I kind of have a forced bold prediction for both of you real quick. Just from a Turkey Bowl perspective, bottom four last year, the ones who missed the playoffs, Edgar, Andrew, Carlos, Angel. Out of those four, who this year is going to have the best finish out of those four? Who's going to make the playoffs and make a little run? Who's going to have the best finish of those bottom four from last year?
I mean, you already brought up, Carlos at the beginning with his first few picks. And I would say Carlos, just based on his starting quarterback, running backs. He's got George Kittle, Terry McLaurin, who I was about to pick when he picked him right before me, as his number. I don't know. He's got a kind of a interesting set of receivers, but I think one of those two in KC is going to work out, and then he's got Terry McLaurin, who's probably really his number one right now. So I would say Carlos out of those.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I would have taken Edgar had he not selected James Conner with his third overall pick. I loved his Bijan and Cook pick, his James Cook pick, right? Bijan being an elite number one, Cook being on that fringe RB1, RB2 area, right? I think he's going to get a lot better run in Buffalo this season. But James Conner, as Tim said, that team is not good. The defense is not good. So if they're always playing from behind, they're not going to run the ball. Kyler is going to be back and throwing the ball as much as he can. So I don't see the volume going to Conner. So yeah, Carlos' team
can
has
those dump offs though. Conner does have a history of catching balls.
Yeah, he also has a history of not staying on the field. So
yes, that as well. Yeah.
So
okay,
I'm
much
more higher on
the
Carlos'
record
team
as well.
with Breece Hall and Walker
Carlos
over.
Yeah, I would pick Carlos as well. I think we would sweep it there with Carlos out of those three. So then from the top four, we have Cody, Rob, Ricky, and Alex. Who's not going to make the playoffs this year out of the teams that finish first through fourth? Cody, Rob, Ricky, and Alex. Who's missing the playoffs this year out of those four?
mean, I already
Uh,
I picked Ricky to come in last, so I feel like I have to be consistent here, even if it was out of pettiness. Um, so I mean, Rob's running back situation
The
is,
RB0 strategies.
I mean, it doesn't look great, but maybe he'll trade for one at some point. You never know what can happen with something like that. Like I said, we thought his RBs looked bad last year. He still did pretty well. He had the number 1 seed. So, um, but yeah, with yeah, it's just like Alex pretty much picked the same team as last year.
Yep.
He picked a couple of Eagles that he didn't have last year, but that's because he's an Eagles fan, and then otherwise he basically has a few of the same starters. So I don't know if that really helps the conspiracy about him not picking his own team last year much, because he seemed to pick the same guys, but it's hard to imagine that he doesn't make the playoffs just with that, the Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown stack. So um, yeah, I'm gonna just stick to Ricky just because that's who I picked in the commit pool, and no, not really any particular reason, just being petty still.
Nice. Yes, let the pettiness ride. I'm deliberating between Rob and Ricky, and our zero RB strategy, yeah, is when I look at the team, and it's only because Chase's situation is still very much up in the air, right? And if your number 1 pick is not even going to see the field, that's a problem, right? So who knows what happens?
He does
with
have
that
3
scenario.
other receivers that were his next 3 picks to cover that. Maybe that's why he actually did it. If Chase doesn't touch the field, his next 3 picks are going to be in his starting lineup.
But so again, Wilson, right? Volume going to get it from Rodgers. But how good is Rodgers? We don't know. Nico Collins is in a very crowded situation with Diggs, Tank Dell, Joe Mixon now catching balls out of the backfield. Dalton Schultz, again, that's a very, very dispersed volume situation there. Drake London, right? That's probably his highest upside guy there. So it could work out wonderfully, and it could be a complete shit show. Who knows how it's going to play out for Rob? So when I look at Ricky, a little, again, the wide receiver situation, Jefferson getting balls thrown from him, Sam Darnold, again, someone I've never been really high on at all. I don't think anyone in the fans community or football watching community believes Sam Darnold's a good quarterback. Ayuk's solid. Neighbors, again, we have Danny Nichols throwing the ball to him. It's a volume play, so I don't know. That's why I'm kind of wavering here. Like, both of them are very unique. Rob's very strong at wide receiver as long as Chase plays, right? Jamar Chase doesn't play, it's a completely different element to the team. So I'm going to select Rob's RB0 strategy just because of our league settings is going to be the one that drops out of the top 4.
Okay. For myself, I know Tim picked Ricky, Manny picked Rob. Looking at this, I'm looking at Alex's team here, and a lot of people are kind of panicking on Pacheco now that P. Ryan's over there. They're already saying he's going to be the guy to come in and play third downs. He's going to be stealing time from Pacheco. That's going to be a problem, and that's his first overall pick. Swift may lose time to they have Roshan Johnson there still and Khalil Herbert. It could be a 3-headed back, thing there. So he might lose out kind of on a lot of the production he was expecting out of his top 2 running backs. And then, Zach Moss might not even be the best running back on his team with Chase Brown going earlier. And then Eckler, sorry, Tim, we all saw how Eckler looked last year. Couldn't outrun a lot of the D linemen and linebackers there in LA.
So slow.
His running backs, yeah, exactly. He looked really slow out there, unfortunately. Hurts is going to be the strong point that kind of could steady things. But his tight end in Pitts, as Manny was mentioning with Pitts before, it could be volatile. That's a big question mark going into the year. AJ Brown's going to be consistent. He went with Manny's strategy of the stack attack with Hurts and Brown. But Waddle misses time. And after that, his next best receiver is Myers. Mooney If Waddle misses time, he's really going to be hurting and really going to be in trouble. He's also a guy who, historically doesn't like trading, doesn't get involved in the trade market. He's going to have to here with this team. I think Alex is going to miss the playoffs. And as Tim was mentioning before, that puts a lot more suspicion on whatever happened to happen last year when he wasn't there for the in-person draft. And he or someone else may have been drafting for him. I think now that help is gone, Alex is going to be back in the bottom four.
He had Pacheco, Swift, and Waddle last year, and for me, the Pacheco pick was the most surprising of the first round. But maybe he just picked him because he had him last year. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So.
Well, I mean, even if he picked AJ Brown in that spot, he was gonna get Pacheco on the way back because Ricky wasn't gonna take him. Ricky was gonna take Kyren and Jefferson. I think he was set on that. So those two, AJ and Pacheco, would have been alternated for Alex, whether one or two.
But and for me, that's the most concerning thing with Ricky's team is his first couple picks. Like they're good players, no doubt, but Kyren Williams, we've talked about, probably not going to see the volume he got last year. Maybe we'll be wrong about that, but it doesn't seem like it. And then who knows the quality of targets Jefferson's going to get. And if Mostert gets hurt, which he seems to do more often than not, or takes a backseat to Achane, or, who knows what could happen. I don't think he's going to score 20 touchdowns again. So his running back depth, if Pollard doesn't end up being a bell cow, then it's kind of thin there too. So, but hey, who knows? Injuries happen. It'll be interesting to see what injuries occur. If there's anything major, like with Nick Chubb last year, that's obviously a major injury. There always seems to be something like that every year. So things could change after week one, but I do have. I guess it's not that bold of a prediction, but it's kind of self-serving. I have T. Higgins, and I am kind of hoping. I don't know if it's better for him if Chase is off the field or not because of the attention that Chase draws, but I think T. Higgins, he's also playing for a contract this year. I think he'll outscore Jamar Chase just because he'll probably play in more games and be the number one target.
Bold. That's a lot bolder than anything Manny.
Spicy. What? Taysom Hill getting more carries than Kamara, more touches? That's not bold?
In 1 week?
Yeah, that's a massive play right there, right? We don't see Taysom Hill as a guy that should be commanding that many touches, but it's gonna happen.
That's true. Touches, I guess. Yeah, touches when you factor in all the checkdowns that Kamara does get from Carr. Yeah, I didn't really think at that point the catches is. I didn't factor that in.
Right. So, all right, guys. No, look, great conversation today. Great stuff. Great draft breakdown. We're looking forward to it. We are 2 days. I mean, we're literally less than 48 hours away from football. I'm very excited. It's going to be fun. I know Tim's like Kansas City, not so great. I'm sure he's rooting for Baltimore in a bad way. I think a lot of us will be rooting for Lamar. Yeah, Lamar to do the job. But so we'll have Ravens, Baltimore on Thursday, and then we have Packers, Eagles on Friday. So 4 days of football. Ravens. Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday.
Of course, most of us won't be watching Packers Eagles unless we've got Peacock, which I don't, and I'm not going to get just so I can watch the 2 or 3 games they have on this year. But that's really annoying. Like
Well, whatever you do, don't pirate it.
Don't pirate. Yeah, that's right. We don't condone that type of service here. We can talk later, Tim, about your Fire Stick here.
What's pirating?
Good.
But I'm looking forward to the first game though. They usually have a good matchup to open the season, and I'm excited to see Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the same backfield. See how Kansas City deals with that.
So fun. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, good stuff. Great show.
Yeah.
Love the analysis. Break it down. We will just have a discussion after the first couple games of the season.
All right.
Yeah, we'll be
Sounds
back
good.
week 1 for the week 1 post show.
We go post show. All right, guys. Have a good one.
All right.
Everyone,
All
thank you
right.
for listening. Have a good one.
See you later.